Well, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Great to have your company, and welcome to another show of Tim Scott Uncancelled with me, Tim Scott. So great to have you with us for another show, the latest edition. Whoever you are, wherever you're watching from, or however you're watching. And talking of however you're watching, one of the places you can find us is on YouTube. If you go to good old YouTube and you search Unprecedented TV, you will find us. And if you can give us a cheeky follow or subscribe, that would be very much appreciated, and it helps you to keep in touch with us. So the format, as ever, is similar. I make a few comments first, and then we bring in a guest. Very excited today with our guest, Linda Duberley, who will be joining us in a minute. And we go behind the papers. We bypass the front pages. We try to dig into some of the deeper stories that you won't find necessarily in the mainstream, so-called mainstream media, or on the front pages of the newspapers. If you're looking as you fill your car up with petrol, or however you look. And we try to find some of the more interesting stories. We've got some good ones this week. And we always try to end on a slightly light-hearted or humorous note. So, folks, yes, what momentous and huge times we live in. I'm reminded of that famous quote. Was it from Lenin about something along the lines of, there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks and months when decades happen? It feels a bit like that. At the minute, the tectonic plates are shifting, to misquote Tony Blair, and our politics is in some turmoil, as we've seen. We are in unprecedented times. Perhaps that's the right word for our TV station, Unprecedented TV. And we are in uncharted territory. Our politics is becoming more uncertain, more volatile. Britain is becoming a bit more tricky to govern. I don't say impossible, but a bit more tricky to govern. I think we're for various reasons, we're a less cohesive, less trusting society. Politics becoming a bit more fragmented, a bit more European. And the latest opinion polls are that I just saw this morning: Reform 28, Conservatives 20, Labour 19, Lib Dems 15, Greens 13. So yet again, we have Conservatives and Labour, our two so-called main parties, struggling to even get into the 20s. Watch this space. We do have a story coming up that's relevant to that. And also in the news as well, we have the events in Iran. And we salute, and the brave people of that benighted country are very much in our thoughts and prayers at the moment with what is going on. I think they've really had enough of the dreadful, dreadful regime there, and the axis of evil that it is a part of, not just worldwide, with linking with countries like North Korea and China, Venezuela, Russia, but also a web of terrorism throughout the Middle East. Iran is not just the head of the snake, it has been called the head of the octopus, and with its tentacles reaching out across the Middle East into Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. So there's two starters for 10, the increasingly volatile state of our politics and the situation in Iran, folks. And by the way, on Iran, Tousi TV, Tousi, Tousi TV has some very, very good coverage. Tousi, of course, Mayar Tousi, being of Iranian extraction, and an Iranian friend of mine who I've known since university days, who lives over this way more now. He describes the Iranian regime as it's like a zombie. It's dead, but it can still get you, and it's not finished yet. Okay, well, enough on our two opening stories. Let's bring in our guest. Very delighted to have today the broadcaster Linda Duberley. Linda, great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us here on Tim Scott Uncancelled.
Good to be here, Tim.
Thank you. I gather you had a bit of an early start this morning.
Well, I was supposed to have a very early start, but that's been rescheduled. And the early start would have been, and will be again, I hope, 4 o'clock in the morning. But I'm kind of a veteran of breakfast television at Sky, so it doesn't faze me completely. But it is a very painful exercise getting up at that time in the midwinter.
Yes, I've had a similar experience. I had to be in. I think we were possibly heading to the same place. I'll let viewers speculate on where that might be. Have a wild guess. I think I had to be there for 5:30 on a Saturday, several times, and the only way I could get in was to order a 4:30 Uber, because they were literally, there's no parking there, and there's no trains running that early.
Yeah.
So I got a 4:30 Uber. I've done that several times. A well-worn path up the M40. Okay, but Linda, you've got quite a background. You've held senior positions at Sky, and you've been a broadcaster. I mean, what have you been up to more lately?
I think the big transition for me came a couple of years ago when I was asked to start doing commentary on news and current affairs and politics. And for me, that was quite a big departure, because you're always trained as a journalist to be impartial and fair and well balanced and all the rest of it. When it comes to having a view, you really have a responsibility to crystallize what you pick, what you choose to be your view. You've got a responsibility to underpin it with what you see as the verifiable facts, but you have to come up with really good, clear, strong opinions. So I've done lots of commentary. I've done a fair bit of work for our emergency services in terms of their media awareness training. That's at a strategic level as well as an operational level. And I've branched out more lately into the kind of image advisory work, because particularly amongst MPs, I've noticed that some of them actually need a bit of help in this department.
Boy, are you right? Some of them. I mean, I watch PMQs every week. I mean, some of them look terrible.
It's terrible, yeah, absolutely terrible. But I originally trained as a magazine journalist, actually, at the London College of Fashion. And so I then moved into very conventional training scheme, Thompson Regional Newspapers, trained at the Western Mail, went to Fleet Street, and then into television at Sky, and then became a foreign correspondent. So I always tell people, I'm actually a trained fashion journalist, but I did end up in a ditch in Macedonia.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Great experience and background there. Is there anywhere in particular that people can find you?
They just Google me, they'll find me. There's plenty.
If they Google you, they'll find you. And you're on Twitter X, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So just the name's there if anybody wants to talk further. I know Linda is quite well regarded in the area of what she does. Okay. Well, thank you. So great to have Linda with us. So let's crack on, studio, with our first story, which is coming up now. Arctic Patrol. This caught my eye. I should declare an interest here. I was in the army for a bit back in the day. I never quite made it to the Arctic, though. I did get to Cyprus a couple of times. Somewhat different weather. I think this is and there's just bottom right. There's this slightly humorous story about the reserves age for call up is being extended to 65. Linda, have you got any thoughts on this story? I mean, I think it's good to see we've got a presence up there, but have you got any thoughts or comments on the wider issue of defence and our national security?
Well, the wider issue, perhaps to start with, on the Arctic, it's called Arctic Sentry, our new strategy up there, and I think it's a very, very important one. I think that one of the things that wasn't particularly discussed in this piece here is that what frightens everyone is the melting of the polar ice caps. And that means that the sea lanes, the really important sea lanes, are now exposed. And that leads to lots of geopolitical tensions, but it also leads to problems over access to minerals and trade routes, because, of course, there'll be fierce competition as to who controls those routes. And the people we're really worried about are Russia and China. So make no joke, the High North, as it's called, that particular area of the Arctic is critically important to our security. And we really have to make a plan about how we defend that. So I believe that Yvette Cooper, who was there midweek, is doing the right thing by forming these alliances and by setting this kind of thing up, because we've seen the Russian shadow fleet in the North Sea cutting our cables. We know what the security issues are, and so we need Arctic Sentry. The other two are I think they're called Baltic Sentry, and there's another name for one. I can't remember the third one, but those two are older and they've been effective. And I think Baltic Sentry will be effective as well. We have to get on top of this. It's a crucial area. As we can see, President Trump believes Greenland to be a crucial area.
Yes.
Yeah, he isn't just thinking I'd like to plaster the stars and stripes all over that land. I mean, there is a reason behind what he's doing. So it's a really critical area. Interestingly, I remember this coming up several months ago on air. And I mentioned that I believe there is a treaty that was signed at the beginning of the 20th century, which gives the UK the first refusal on Greenland. But clearly, President Trump has forgotten that. And at the time,
well, get in line, as they say in America.
Yeah, but I'm not sure he will. I mean, that treaty was signed, I believe, because of Greenland's proximity to Canada, which is part of the Commonwealth. Now, that's obviously been put to one side while this whole discussion about the region goes on. But my former colleague, Tim Marshall, who wrote the excellent Prisoners of Geography, wrote a brilliant piece last week in, I think it was the Times, saying that before you had gunboat diplomacy and you had all sorts of diplomacy that raged over fossil fuels and et cetera, now the whole battle is over these rare earth minerals. And Greenland has many, many, many of them. And that's what may be one of the key parts of this discussion is how to protect, from our point of view, the access to those minerals and stop China and Russia, who have formed an access into getting their ships and their tankers into, and the military into Greenland as well.
Yes, good. I mean, a couple of good points there from Linda. Firstly, about certainly for some months of the year, the Arctic is open and it's a shorter way to sort of get round into the Atlantic. And I think secondly, the rare earth minerals generally. I mean, there was a very good point recently made at a conference by the new head of the Navy, who's a general in the Royal Marines, the Marines being part of the Navy, of course, saying, look, let's not be complacent because we don't think we have a border with Russia or we're way to the rest of Europe. We do, in a sense, have a border with Russia, and that is the open sea to the north. And Russia is continually sending ships and submarines. There you go. There's one. And sending aircraft around. So we're quite frequently scrambling jets from RAF Lossiemouth in Scotland. There was a bit of a fiasco recently, which didn't reflect well on our armed or the funding really of our armed services, where a Russian submarine came through the channel as it's entitled to on its way somewhere else. And the protocol is that it's shadowed by it comes through on the surface and it's shadowed by a Navy warship. But hang on a minute, we didn't have any or enough warships available. So we ended up with the ludicrous situation of the Russian submarine being tracked by an oil tanker. Can you believe? Quite extraordinary. Okay, Linda, thank you for your comments there. It's good to see that there's some awareness of what's going on up there, although one has to hope that the resources for it will be matched. Linda, yes.
I just want to say two things.
You come back.
Please. The first thing is, you are exactly right there, Tim, when you say that resources have to be matched to the threat. And at the moment, they are not. We have to face the fact that our military has been hollowed out. There's not enough money to buy the right weapons. There's not enough money for the accommodations for our soldiers. There's not enough money for supplies. There's not enough money for the infrastructure that's necessary to make an army work properly. And we are sleepwalking into a very dangerous situation. We simply have to accept that even to raise defence spending to 3% of GDP is not enough. We do have to go higher, because the defence of the realm is the most important thing that we put money into. I appreciate that there are other areas of grave concern in the economy right now. It's obviously a very, very difficult time, but we have to spend money militarily in order to back things up. But also, I do think that we have not paid enough attention to Greenland simply because we think it's over there somewhere. And actually, we've got to get used to the idea that in the modern world, everything is connected to everything else. I often use the expression, when a butterfly beats its wings on one side of the world, sooner or later you feel the vibrations on your side of the world. It is a big mistake to think that what goes on in Greenland and what goes on way beyond our borders will not impact us in a very direct sense in the near future.
Fair points. And I think we've got to look at the funding, even things as we must move on, but even final comment, even things as basic as the accommodation that the troops have to live in. Is really important. Okay, thank you, Linda. Some good points there. Okay, let's move on to our next story. I normally put the comedy item last, although I suppose when you look at stories like this, I'm never quite sure whether to laugh or cry. This is that previous story was from the Mirror. This is from the Times. Pronoun advice makes council a laughingstock. A Labour-run council has told its employees to announce their pronouns at the start of meetings and encourage the use of gender-neutral versions such as Z, Z, Zem. Sounds like a child's alphabet, doesn't it? A leaked memo reveals staff at Wandsworth Borough Council. I mean, this used to be Tory-run for decades, didn't it? And I think they eventually won it back. Were advised to take the step, as well as adding pronouns to their email signatures and social media profiles. Linda, what pronouns are you in the habit of using?
Just the usual.
The usual,
I just think this story is, you're right, you don't know whether to laugh or cry. I did have a quick look up at Z, la 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 before I came on air with you. And they're called neo-pronouns, apparently. I've never even heard of that expression. But it's interesting that you are running this story alongside the previous one on the Arctic situation. Why are we wasting our time with this kind of behaviour when we are in the most critical and the most dangerous period since the Second World War? I cannot believe it. I mean, do you think that the few, the airmen that went off to fight the Battle of Britain, the men we dispatched overseas, were squabbling about what pronouns they wanted? No, because they were busy trying to stay alive and protect our freedoms. And we've got to wake up to the fact that apart from the military situation, we've got a terrible economic situation to confront. We've got really severe problems with a declining birth rate, with an aging population, with a climate, which is affecting the Arctic we've just spoken about. And we're kind of sleepwalking through all of those big stories. Meanwhile, we're becoming obsessed with this kind of minutiae.
Yes, and which toilets you can use.
It's ridiculous. I
mean, we're having toilet wars.
Yeah, I just can't believe it. I mean, I try and do my best for my kids who are all adults, and I've got 2 Gen Zs and 1 millennial. So I pay very close attention to what they think and what they say. And I'm very respectful that they don't use anything other than normal pronouns. But many of their friends do use. I haven't heard one use a neo pronoun, but I will pay respect to that generation, even though I don't use that kind of stuff myself. But to hear a council, a local authority behaving this way when they have way bigger problems to be dealing with is astonishing.
Yeah, what are we spending public money on?
Exactly.
It does worry you, and it fits in with our previous story. It's all about finding the right money for the right priorities. Yeah, this is Wandsworth Council, of course, Tory run for many years. I think they won it in the 80s and ran it for decades and decades. It had a good reputation as a well-run Tory council provided with low council tax. There was always that famous picture of the road where the houses on one side were Wandsworth and the other side, was it Labour-run Lambeth, I think? And, one side was paying double the council tax of the other or something like that. And they weren't getting much greater public services, if at all. And of course, Labour won it back recently, thanks to the collapse in the Conservative votes. Yes. So this kind of story does make you wonder where we're going and what we can look forward to in the future. Thanks, Linda. Our next story, if we could have that up, studio, is this is from The Guardian. Now, it's about Eva Vladingerbroek from Holland. Now, just forget for a minute whether you've heard of her or not. It's more about the principle here, which I find a bit of a worrying one. Whether you've heard of her or not, whether you agree with her politics or not. I mean, trust The Guardian to call her a far-right influencer. I think they seem to think half of us now are far right. It's entered into the lexicon almost as a bit of a joke now. So this is, yes, far right influencer loses right to visa-free travel to the UK. A Dutch anti-immigration influencer who has promoted conspiracy theories such as the Great Replacement appears to have had her authorization for visa-free travel to the UK revoked. Eva Vladingerbroek posted an image online of what appeared to be a notification from the British government that her UK electronic travel authorization, ETA, had been cancelled. Quote, "Your presence in the UK is not considered to be for the public good." Now, I don't hold any particular brief for Eva Vladingerbroek, and her politics is not one I would entirely subscribe to. But I think there's some worrying precedents here, Linda, about that are sort of linked to the nature of our government and free speech and all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I was reading about this woman earlier in this week, and I don't know whether they've actually not given her a visa or definitely banned her, but there are moves afoot to ban her and deny her a visa. And even though I don't agree with her at all, I think it's ridiculous not to allow her to travel to this country, not to give her a visa. It's ridiculous. When at the same time, you've got Alaa Abri El Fattah, the Egyptian, who's not just allowed into this country. This is someone who says he hates Israelis, wants to kill Israelis, wants to kill the police, hates all sorts of things about this country. Not only have we let him in, he has now been given citizenship. And now there's a row going on about who denies him citizenship first, because the Egyptians are threatening to remove his citizenship. And if they do that, he has to remain a British citizen under international law. So we've got that whole row going along in parallel to this woman who, although I know she appeared at the Tommy Robinson rally last year, which, I'm not a particular fan of his either. But she appeared at the rally. She said what she had to say. We have the freedom of speech in this country. There were no demonstrations of any note after that. She did not incite any violence. So there's no legal reason to actually take any penalty measures against her. And there's certainly no reason to deny her a visa.
Yes. I mean, does it feel to you, Linda, like some of our basic liberties, trial by jury, free speech, all this kind of thing, does it feel to you like there's a bit of a squeeze on them?
I think there is a bit of a squeeze. I haven't lost hope yet. I think abolishing trial by jury, no matter what the pressure is on our court system, is a really bad idea. You don't abandon a fundamental right which has existed since days of Magna Carta because the system can't cope with the number of cases coming before it. You solve the system, not remove a fundamental right, in my view. And I think that we are sometimes jeopardizing our freedom of speech. We see there David Lammy, don't we? He's the one behind trying to abolish the jury trials for less serious crimes. But also, I think that we have to protect our freedom of speech. Now, generally speaking, and I did my training, very conventional training as a journalist, in which I did law, public administration, all sorts of things. But in law, you generally speaking, you can say what you want as long as you don't incite violence, incite racial hatred, or defame someone. And as journalists, we all had to learn the laws of defamation, of slander, and of libel, the written and spoken form of defamation. Now, that's quite strong protection. So there's no real reason why some of the tweets I've seen should be pulled down, or people should be getting visits from the police, because they haven't broken any real laws. And we've got to be very, very careful about that type of behaviour from our police force, because basically they shouldn't be involved in that kind of thing. And they're under enough pressure having to deal with shoplifting and street crime and crimes that actually do affect us all.
Yes, no, I completely agree. Apparently, she said something a bit uncomplimentary on Twitter X about 3 days ago about Keir Starmer. And, you know, she may well even have insulted him. But
so have I, Tim.
Well, I think half the country would be banned under that rule, Linda. But I think this does seem to be a government that, you know, whenever they do seem rather fond of sort of banning things and banning people, and you know, rather than sort of try and convince people, I think they seem to reach for the ban button.
Yeah, and not just the banning button, but stopping elections.
Yes,
stopping elections, cancelling elections. I posted this morning. Cancelling elections is like cancelling democracy. You can't do it. End of. I don't care how many local authorities. Maybe they're just too busy debating pronouns, but I don't know how many local authorities are saying that, oh no, we're under too much pressure, we can't afford this, we can't afford that, we can't afford to run elections this year, yada, yada, yada. Manage your finances better, collect the bins, stop debating pronouns, and start with the elections, because denying elections is categorically wrong.
Yeah, so 4 million people are going to lose their vote, some for the second year running. But there's still elections in Scotland, Wales, and London. They haven't managed to cancel. At least they haven't managed to cancel those. But yeah, 4 million people are not going to get the vote. Well, okay, good. Thank you, Linda. And let's move on then to the story of the week. And I think this is going to be a story that will run and run, which is Robert Jenrick's defection. A bit of a drama here, whether it's a psychodrama or not, we'll find out in a minute. And so firstly, we have the perhaps more Tory-leaning Daily Mail. The British public are tired of political psychodrama, and so am I, says Kemi Badenoch. And then if we can get the next article up, this is from the slightly perhaps more reform-leaning Express. We like to cover all the views. We've had the Mirror and the Guardian so far, so we're not just looking one way politically. With the two main parties failing Britain, Nigel was all too often a lone voice of common sense, quote unquote. Linda, were you gripped by this story the other day?
Oh yeah, I was. Yesterday, as soon as it happened, I got the TV on, got the laptop open, I'm looking on my phone, calling contacts. I think it's an extraordinary moment. And what I remember hearing was that Kevin Hollingworth said it wasn't just the resignation. Kemi Badenoch had to move very swiftly because it was his behaviour to the party that they found acceptable. And I wondered what that meant. And so I phoned a couple of people, and what it meant was, it wasn't just the fact that he was going to resign, it was that he was going around recruiting people who would resign with him. And that is a very, very, you know, if you say you join a party when you're 16, you're very loyal to it, you believe in it, but then you come to a situation where you cannot reconcile what's going on around you with what you believe should be happening in this country, that's fair enough. But you don't drag other people along with you, no matter how semi-willing they have to be, because that lacks integrity. And also, I think in that press conference, he was asked a couple of times whether he did it, and he said no.
Yeah, there's been a lot of hoo-ha about this story. And I must admit, I've always warmed to Robert Jenrick. I was at I was sitting next to him at a dinner. I mean, I don't know him particularly well, but I was sat next to him at a dinner a few months ago. And he was certainly keeping his cards close to his chest. And one thing I did notice was he was very good with people. Went round the room, shaking everybody's hand, you know, getting to know everyone. And then was at the end of the dinner, you know, stood up and spoke for a good 10 minutes from the heart. This is when he was still in the Conservatives, obviously. Spoke for about 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes, from the heart, quite passionately, and without any notes, which I notice is something Keir Starmer has a problem with. He certainly doesn't speak passionately, and he always clings to the notes. So I think, I mean, where do you think we're going, Linda, with you know, reform and the Tories?
Well, I actually agree. Can I just say I agree with you as well about Robert Jenrick? I too have sat close to him at a dinner, and I've had a chat with him in between courses, etc., etc. I think that he is a thoughtful man, and I think that he does get on well with people. And I think that some of the things he did on social media were engaging, and you know, there was resonance there, real resonance for the people of this country. But I don't think you should be, if you're going to leave. You shouldn't be recruiting other people.
Leave means leave.
Pardon?
Leave means leave.
That's right.
As we need to say.
Exactly. But I do think that Kemi Badenoch handled the situation really, really well. And I think part of the reason why he might have decided to go, this is just my observation, is that as she has got better, and she has got better, much better at PRQs and better at other things as well, people have become much more confident and comfortable with her being leader. And they also see that, okay, she wasn't brilliant to start with, but she was pacing herself. She was biding her time. She wants to be sensible. She wants to be a good leader. And a lot of people are talking about yesterday as her Margaret Thatcher moment. And so it makes a change for someone, instead of talking about being like Margaret Thatcher, is now behaving like her. I find that really impressive. So, you know, I wish Robert Jenrick well. He's got a task ahead of him, but he is an experienced parliamentarian, which is what Nigel Farage says, and it is what reform needs. It does need process, and it does need to get on top of the nitty-gritty, the grind work of being in politics. So I think the Robert Jenrick thing will, you know, that will last now for a couple of days. The Sunday newspapers will, you know, want their bite of the cherry, etc., etc. But I think that the whole question of who joins reform will run and run and run up until the May elections. Now, Nigel Farage said at that press conference yesterday, and he's kind of hostage to fortune with this one a little bit, but he said that he wouldn't entertain any new people coming into reform after the May elections. I think that was a little bit foolish, but I know why he said it. And I think Nigel Farage, you know, this is not whether I agree with him or not, is a very, very good communicator. He's very good at studying human nature. And he knows that if there's a disastrous election for the Conservatives in May, which there could be, he doesn't want all those people coming into his club, his tribe, because what does it say about the caliber of the person he's going to get? He wants to get people who are committed right now. And that is what he should want. So we shall see what happens. But I think that I do hear murmurings of some kind of deal being struck between the Conservatives and reform before the next election. And to me, that would make sense. A coupon election where in some areas Conservatives stand back to make way for reform. In other areas, reform stands back to make way for a Conservative candidate. That way, Conservatives can get some benefit of the reform popularity, and reform will get some benefits from, the Conservatives are like the world's longest running parliamentary party. They know how to get stuff done. They may have made mistakes. They may have been unpopular. People hold them to account for 14 years, some of which was truly disastrous, but they do know how things work.
Yeah, I mean, historically, they have been a extraordinarily successful political party. Okay, thank you, Linda, for your comments. Okay, we're just going to take a very quick break now and learn about some of the other shows that are available here on Unprecedented TV. Thank you, studio. Okay, so that's Claire Dyer with Dire Consequences. Okay, so we come to the final story, and we always try and keep a bit of a humorous one for the end. Yeah, this is from the Express. Are you posh enough for a Hermes? The label Googles the address of buyers to judge their status. Costing around £10,000 each, the Birkin bag really is for the select few. Manufacturer Hermes apparently takes extreme measures to ensure that it stays that way. This includes checking out potential buyers to make sure that they are prestigious enough, that they qualify, to making sure that they are suitably exclusive people to have one of their bags. A light-hearted story, Linda, but you've got a bit of previous here, haven't you, with Hermes? Is it Hermes?
I would love to own an Hermes bag. And I'm very interested in style and fashion and everything else. Originally, I went to the London. I'm a graduate and alumni of the London College of Fashion. But I was doing magazine journalism. I swapped over into news. I became a hard news reporter and eventually ended up as a foreign correspondent. But I always pay attention to sort of style issues. And Hermes fascinates me on another level because I'm very interested in branding. And Hermes is a very, very famous label. It was saddle maker to the French court hundreds of years ago. It's got an enormous amount of provenance, and it protects its brand very, very carefully. Now, I don't know whether it Googles postcodes of people. I think that's a little bit unreliable, and Hermes are very good at being professional with their brand. But I do know that they won't sell a bag to someone who hasn't got a previous buying history with them. So in order to even get on the waiting list, because you can't just go in and buy one, you'd have to be very lucky to have the exact bag you want lying around on the shelf, especially when they're 15,000 a pop. And that red crocodile one is probably over 30,000-40,000 pounds. You can see it there. Wow. So they will check you out, and you will have to have bought, silk scarves and beach towels and, the old blanket before you even get a chance to go on the waiting list. Why someone leaves it in a gym? It's beyond me. I mean, that is a very insecure thing to do.
Yes. Don't leave it in the locker at your local gym. Now, that's an interesting bit of intelligence there, Linda. Thank you. Yes, with my investment.
One thing: these bags are very, very famous. So the sister of the Birkin bag is the Kelly bag, and that is the bag favoured by Princess Grace of Monaco. And that is the bag she carried to cover the fact that she was pregnant with her first child. And I believe it was on the cover of Paris Match. And the Hermes family contacted her and, said, would she like one in a different colour or whatever? The same way they contacted Jane Birkin they didn't have to contact her because the head of the Hermes family was on a plane with her, and he saw her struggling, carrying all her nappies and her bottles for her little baby, struggling with a plastic carrier bag, and she couldn't cope, she couldn't find anything in the bag, and he said, let us make one for you. And that is how the Birkin bag was made.
Wow, useful bit of inside information there, Linda. Absolutely fascinating story, this. And so, as ever, we conclude with a slightly light-hearted one here on Tim Scott Uncancelled. Well, we're drawing to the end of the show, folks. A big thank you to broadcaster Linda Duberley. I hope some of her experience has come through there. So thank you for joining us. We'll be back again soon. And it's goodbye from us today. Our thanks to the studio, and thanks for joining us and watching us again on Tim Scott Uncancelled.